Welcome to the Den of Tools.
Howdy ho, guys and gals, it's Red, your friendly neighborhood tool bear, back again here in the Den of Tools, and we're here today to answer that question you've been asking yourself for a long time, which is, do I really need two different types of socket sets? And what we're talking about here is we're talking about the difference between impact sockets and chrome sockets. Now, it may seem kind of obvious. Impact sockets are for use on impacts, whereas chromes are for everything else, besides they're shiny and pretty looking, right? But really, at the end of the day, could you just get by with one? Why do you need both? What's the actual difference? Now, I didn't just do some research to ask a few people. I went right to the source. I talked to people with like abbreviations behind their names and everything, scientist types. Actually, to be honest, I talked to 4 different engineers at 4 different companies. We're talking about Harbor Freight, Tecton, SK, and Ingersoll Rand. And I got right from the horse's mouth why they make these tools in this manner and what the real difference is. Now, essentially, there's 2 types of metals that are, on average, we're going to be talking about a lot of generalizations here, but on average, you're looking at chrome moly and you're looking at chrome vanadium. Those are the 2 different recipes, if you would, for alloy steels that are being used here. Now, real quick, I'm going to give you, this is kind of a general synopsis of the typical, mix, the alloy, if you would, that's being used. Now, they've taken the iron out of this pie chart because if you added the iron in there, it would take up 97 or so percentage of it. And you wouldn't be able to really see what all the different parts are. Essentially, these all have chromium, magnesium, carbon, silicon, phosphorus, and sulfur, making up a vast majority. I mean, the chrome, the magnesium, and the carbon are by far the largest additions to the iron that you see in these alloys. Now, in chrome vanadium, the only difference here, and if you look, it's right here in the pie chart, you got 0.3% vanadium, and you got 0.25% of molybdenum. I can't pronounce that. Vanadium. The point is, I mean, look at how small. That's not a quarter of the percentage. That's a quarter of 1%. So if you take every percentage is in there, less than one, half of 1/4 of 1%. That's the difference that we're talking about here. And what all these engineers stress to me is, at the end of the day, they're really close. Okay, but what you're talking about when you're mixing these recipes up and the different variations they go for is you're doing this balance, this gameplay, if you will, between strength and brittleness. All right, the stronger, and again, generalities that we're talking about here. I know someone's going to be like, well, actually, yeah, I get it. You go back to your mom's basement. We get that there's always the exception to the rule and blah, 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 or the more specific. We're talking in layman's terms at this point. And that is that when you increase the strength, you also increase the brittleness, generally speaking. And so they're trying to fight this thing between having the ductileness or the plasticity, if you would, of like an impact socket. That's what they're really looking for with the impacts, is they're trying to add a little bit more give so you don't get that shattering effect that you see with a brittleness, what they call the catastrophic failure line. As you see with something that's strong and brittle, that line comes much sooner, but at a higher level. Whereas if something that's more ductile or has greater plasticity, it can absorb much more energy before it reaches a critical failure point. Now, as I said, with chrome sockets, over here in Harbor Freight, we're looking at their icon sockets. This is their higher end one. This is made very similar to a lot of the stuff you see in the higher range. We often refer to it as the tool truck equivalent kind of stuff. And you come down here and we can see that this is made, of course, from chrome vanadium steel. But you know what? The same thing can be said of the basic Pittsburgh sockets. You go down here again, and we're also looking at chrome vanadium steel. And now with the chrome, the difference here is basically they make the vanadium steel and then they put a plating on it. That's not the chrome they're talking about here, but that's why they're chrome sockets. So chrome vanadium is the type of metal used in the core. The chrome that's put on the surface is a finish, a protective layer, if you will. Now, on the other side of this spectrum is the impacts. We're looking at the Pittsburgh sockets here. We come down here and they are a chrome moly finish. And the same can be said for the icon sockets. You come down here, and again, you're going to see they got a chrome moly finish with a black phosphate finish on it. Now, that's, again, at the end of the process. Let me see if I can ramp that up for you. At the end of the process, They go through a dipping process that's similar. Doesn't seem to be nearly as toxic as the chrome stuff. I mean, I've seen chrome plating done, and that stuff, it looks, I mean, it's like cancer in a bucket. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating, but that's what it looks like. Anyway, the real issue here that a lot of people miss out on is that, okay, the finish is nice and whatnot, and the chrome helps you protect it and clean it and stuff, and the black oxide is going to help you protect it from a lot of the corrosive materials you'll see in automotive and industrial uses. You know, you get underneath the car, a lot of that fluid coming out of there, you know, you want to protect those sockets, and that's what the black anodization does for that. But again, back to the difference between impact and standard hand sockets is really the thickness. That's where it really comes into play. You'll see here, we got the inside picture here over on the Tecton site showing us. I love Tecton. They have great imagery for all their equipment here. Yeah, you can see the inside of a chrome socket, and we go over here and you can see then the inside of an impact socket. Essentially, they don't look that different, but there is a thickness difference, generally speaking, that you're going to see between an impact and a chrome, because metal in this situation becomes exponentially stronger the thicker it gets. Now, on top of that, you're going to get a double whammy with the chrome because you're using a technically, not much marginally speaking, harder material with the vanadium than you are with the chrome moly, but you add that chrome finish on it, and now you have double hardness, if you will. Now, the benefit, as we said, is the chrome moly will crack rather than shatter when used, not just on impact. In any case, you're going to see a crack form, and you're going to be like, okay, it's time to retire this, versus what you're going to see with a chrome socket, which is, you know, critical, tragic failure there when the thing just shatters. Now, when it gets really bad is when you're using this on an impact and your hand's near it and you get an injury like this. Oh, wait, we're on YouTube. I can't show stuff like that. But that said, don't think that can't happen with an impact. It surely can. But those edges on the impact are typically not going to be nearly as razor sharp as you're going to see with a chrome finished socket. So you don't want to be using the chrome sockets on the impact. Now, I know someone's going to jump out there and say, you know, my girl said she likes bad boys. Me, I put chrome impacts on my socket. Yeah, we get it. Now, another one of the things that I hear often is that the chrome, or the impact, that they're thicker because they add weight to the impact and thus assist with the impactedness. Basically an inertia issue. That's true-ish. Not really with your standard impacts, but there are specialty impacts such as this one pictured here. This is the harmonic balancer socket, 3 times momentum power. This is for Honda engines for this particular bolt that you're trying to get out, and this adds some inertia to that to try and get that out better. So typically no, but sometimes yes. One thing I will say with impacts that I've heard time and time again, that I'll be honest, I talked to the guys I was talking to, they all agreed with it, but they couldn't provide specific numbers. It was more of generally, this is what we've seen, and that is that when you use chrome on your impacts, it's tougher on the anvil, which means that you're going to, in a little bit of time, having to be replacing those anvils. That's not a fun or cheap thing to do. So if you want to take care of your tools, use the right tool for the job, as we often or always say around here. Right tool, right job. That's always key here. Now, I want to mention this because I know a lot of you have been chomping at the bit, probably already on your keyboard going, what about Thinwall impact sets? Yes, they do make them. You can see them here. These are made by Seda. That's Gear Wrench's middle of the road line. Great tools, honestly. But there are these combination or, multi-use, I guess, kind of sockets. They could be for, a lot of these could be for people who like, I don't want to buy both. So I want something that kind of is the best of both. But again, with any kind of, when you're meeting in the middle, you're kind of losing both ends of it. So you're not going to get quite the impact resistance you're going to get with a larger impact. And you're not going to get that shiny hardness, easy to clean with the chrome. I get it, but it's an option. The other thing is there's sometimes where you need an impact, and honestly, an impact won't fit. All right, I mean, because that's the real benefit of the Chrome handheld sockets is they're thinner. They can get in places you can't get with the other tools. They're easier to clean. Because that chrome finished stuff just wipes right off grease and whatnot. Whereas the impacts are they're tough, they're resistant to corrosion and all the other stuff you're going to put on it. But again, that's the finish itself. Now, as far as other styles of thin walled, you often see these, and these are particularly for different types of lug nuts, is what they're generally used for. That's why you see that white coating on the outside. That's to protect wheels and whatnot from the socket themselves. I have a set of these. Not this particular brand here, but I have a set, and they're fantastic to have around because, you never know, if you're a handy kind of bear like me, you're working on your own stuff, somebody else needs some help, you need help them, and somebody's got a nice finish on their rims and stuff, you don't want to bang it up. This is a great set just to have for that just in case kind of thing. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I am also, I'll put a link down below to this if you're interested, but I'm also going to put a link to this Tecton article. This is a great article that they put up about talking about chrome moly versus chrome vanadium, why it's used, and what the difference is. Now, let's be honest. You will find impact sockets that are made in chrome vanadium. You will find hand sockets that are sometimes made in chrome moly. A lot of people think, well, it's because it's cheaper and whatnot. It may just be that that's what that company has in their factory as far as what they're used to working with as far as steels. You can make one tougher than the other depending on how you mix it up. There are chrome mollies that rate on the hardness factor harder than some chrome vanadiums. It's true. It's all in the recipe, okay? So you can't really write them off entirely just because they're chrome moly or just because they're chrome vanadium. You got to take a look at it. You got to be sure what you're using and why you're using it. Basically, at the end of the day, you want to use chrome moly for impacts, usually with a black oxide finish. It's going to make your tools last longer. It's going to put more work into the bolt you're trying to take on or off. Whereas with the chrome, that's easier for hand use. It's good for cleaning. It's thinner, can get into smaller places. That's why you want to use it. Can you get away with one? Sure. And in all likelihood, if you're not doing stuff where there's a lot of tight little places, then just get impacts. You'll be perfectly fine with them probably. And if you get into a tight spot where you need one, then pick up one or a small set somewhere else. But the reality is, if you don't do a lot of that, then you don't have to break the bank and buy both sets. I know they probably don't want me saying stuff like that, but that's the bear's honest truth. Anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know what your experience has been with these. Put in the comments down below. I'd like to hear your input. While you're down there, don't forget to chomp the old like button. Subscribe and then ring the bell. Don't ring the bell before subscribing. That doesn't have as much effect. Anyway, that's all the bear has for you today. You all take care. God bless. And as always, shine on.